Okay, so today we're going to talk about the categorical imperative. But first we need to understand something about imperatives generally. Kant thought that there were two types: the hypothetical, which is contingent upon agential desires. Basically, it says that if I want to do X, I should do Y. If I want to learn Italian, I should take an Italian class. And again, as I said, the thing about hypothetical imperatives is that they are contingent on the goals of agents. So if I said, you should take an Italian class, and you told me, I'm not really trying to do Italian, or do anything that would require me learning Italian, we would consider that to be an appropriate response. This is to contrast with the categorical imperative, which is not contingent on agential goals. If I told you, you can't kill people, and you said to me, but not killing people is not really in line with my goals and what I'm trying to do right now, we would not consider that to be even a remotely appropriate response. So Kant thought that morality could not merely be a system of hypothetical imperatives. It had to be categorical. But before we delve deeper into what the categorical imperative is, we need to talk about maxims. I take this definition of maxims from Mark Timon's moral theory. And a maxim is a subjective principle of volition. And they're not always on your mind, maxims, but they can become evident upon reflection. So basically what this means is that while everyone in senior seminar is trying to earn a degree in philosophy, it is not the case that for the 4 years we're at Western Kentucky University we're constantly thinking, I'm going to earn a degree in philosophy, I'm going to earn a degree in philosophy, I'm going to earn a degree in philosophy. And so basically that's how maxims work. It is the case that we're all trying to earn a degree in philosophy, but that's not what's on our minds all the time. It's just something that we can know is true upon reflection. So, the categorical imperative. As I said, it is universally binding. It consists of a universal respect for the autonomy of others based on their status as rational agents. Kant didn't think that morality had anything to do with humans. Kant thought that any rational being could participate in morality. It also held that immoral actions were irrational. Some of the things I've said here are a little weird and maybe a little unintuitive, but let's talk about the formulations of the categorical imperative first, because we can use those to shed some light on some of the things I've said here. So the first formulation, and the formulation that you would go to if you had to tell someone the categorical imperative in a sentence, is the formulation from Universal Laws of Nature. Act only in accordance with that maxim through which you can at the same time will that it become a universal law. So what this means is that any maxim that you will, basically what it means for a maxim to be a universal law is that people would do it all the time just as a matter of who they were. Or, as a matter of being rational agents. So it's sort of like how gravity is just constantly in effect. It would be like that. It's just kind of a natural law. And basically the formulation from the Universal Law of Nature states that if you will a maxim that when universalized, when treated as a universal law of nature, makes it impossible for you to will that maxim is immoral. It violates the categorical imperative. And so, a lot of the time when the categorical imperative is explained to people, this is never really explained in depth. It's just sort of, yep, that's what Kant thought. But there's a reason Kant thought this. As I've said, the categorical imperative is universally binding, and so Kant thought that if morality existed at all, it had to be universal. What is forbidden for me is forbidden for you, is forbidden for Kant, is forbidden for everyone. The same with permissibility. Whatever I can do, whatever you can do. And from that, we get whatever I can do, everyone should be able to do. So any maxim that literally everyone could not perform can't be universalizable, can't be moral, must contradict the categorical imperative. Like the maxim, I will lie. In a universe where everyone lies, that maxim won't work. Because in a universe where everyone lies, no one would believe you when you tell a lie. Because they're going to know, everyone's lying, I am not deceived by his lie has failed. And so, in that way, the maxim is self-defeating if universalized. This also works with other things like theft. In a world where people are just stealing things all the time, it's impossible to steal things. It's impossible for me to say, I'm going to steal this. Because what does it even mean to say that you're going to steal something in a world where no one really owns anything because everyone's just stealing it all the time? So, that is the formulation from the universal law of nature. And this is also why, this also demonstrates that immoral actions are irrational, because if I do something that goes against the categorical imperative, Kant says that I'm making an exception for myself from the universal application of the categorical imperative. So, basically, when I steal something, I obviously can't be saying that, well, everyone can steal something, because, as we've already discussed, it's not possible that everyone steals things all the time, because that would render stealing impossible. So I'm not saying everyone can steal things, I'm saying, well, me, I'm special, and I can steal things, which is irrational, because if morality exists, it is universal. So now we get to the second formula, the formulation from humanity. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy claims that this is the formulation that attracts a lot of Kantians to the view. And it says that you should treat others never as a mere means, but always as an end in themselves. This respects their autonomy, it gives them the possibility of assent. So basically, you can never use others simply as tools for achieving a goal. Now, notice it says as a mere means. So for instance, if I need a hole dug, I cannot hold you at gunpoint and threaten to kill you unless you dig this hole. I'm giving you I don't know, if you really want to be annoying about it, sure, I'm giving you a choice, but it's a choice that people are only ever going to say, well, okay, hand me that shovel, I'm going to get to work. But, if on the other hand, I told you, hey, I need a hole dug, I'll pay you $20 to do it, will you do it? And you say yes, I am using you as a means. I'm using you as a means to get the hole dug, but I'm not using you as a mere means. I am also respecting you as an end in yourself, because I gave you the opportunity to assent to my proposition. Kant held that these formulations were morally equivalent. It's not incredibly clear what he means by that, but what we think he means is that if you apply them, you will come to the same conclusions about what you are allowed and not allowed to do. What lends credence to this view is the fact that when Kant is explaining these things, he says that he uses the same examples throughout each, and he shows that the example, it is not permitted under the formulation from universal law of nature or the formulation from humanity. So now let's talk about some objections. First is the objection of the murderer at the door. There was a French philosopher whose name I don't remember and no one really talks about anymore, but there was a French philosopher who read what Kant had to say, and he was like, well, this can't really be the case. For instance, in the case of lying, surely there are some people who don't earn the truth. They don't deserve it. You shouldn't give it to them. So if you're hiding a friend, and a murderer appears at your door and says, hey, your friend here? Surely, you're not supposed to tell him the truth. You should lie to him. And Kant wrote kind of an infamous essay called On a Supposed Right to Lie from Benevolent Motives, in which he said, or he is often construed to have said, nope, you can't lie to him. That's not how it works. Kant is very infamous, very notorious for poorly applying his very good normative ideas, because elsewhere in the lectures on ethics, he wrote something that was basically said, well, you can't be punctiliously truthful. You can't just be truthful all the time without, a second thought, because people would know this, and they would take advantage of you for it. So, in situations where abstaining from answering cannot solve the problem, you're allowed to use a lie as a weapon of defense. Christine Korsgaard gives this argument very good treatment in The Right to Lie, Kant on Dealing with Evil. So if you want to look that up, it's a very good resource. You can find it all over the internet. So a second criticism, which don't want to be a plagiarist, I am quoting here from a discussion I had about Kant on Reddit the other day. Kant holds that it is possible for reason to determine our actions, and he argues that the categorical imperative requires that this be the case. But is this actually possible? It's kind of damning for Kant if reason is actually not the sort of independent thing he characterizes it as. Because Kant also states that ought implies can. We can only be said to have an obligation to do those things we can actually do. And I don't really have an answer for this, so that is another objection to Kant's theory. So, in review, there are imperatives, hypothetical, which depend on an agent's goals, and categorical, which do not and apply universally. Maxims are subjective principles of volition. The categorical imperative is universal and entails that immoral actions are irrational. It has two primary formulations. Formulation from universal law, which says that any maxim you will must be able to be universalized. Everyone should be able to do it without making it impossible. And the formulation from humanity, which is never to treat people as a mere means to an end, but instead to always respect their autonomy. Thank you.